All right. Hello, I'm Jay. I'm codependent. Hi, Jay. My first share, I had twice as much to share as I had time for, so we'll see how much higher power will allow to come out of my mouth today. I'm Jay. I'm codependent, and I'm thrilled to be here, grateful to be here, very excited to talk to you today. I am a human being who thinks in metaphors, so I hope that you will forgive me for a moment or two while I talk to you about wildfires. Wildfires have this tendency to burn up everything in their path. They're very, very hot and uncomfortable for human beings. They fill human lungs with smoke, and everything is terrible to be inside one. And I was raised in the wildfires of addiction. I am a very emotional human being. And a lot of people who coexist with me in places where I'm not talking are often surprised to hear that. Presenting male as I do, having a big intimidating beard, having my mouth shut most of the time. But there's a lot of emotional stuff going on inside me. And higher power decided to put me in a family where one person didn't want to talk about much at all, and the other had no real insight about emotions to share. Or at least that's the way it seemed to me at the time. I was also in a society where admitting to emotions would cause teasing at best and beatings at worst. And so I quickly learned that I needed to keep that to myself. I, as part of my therapy, did a very involved tracking of my family history with addiction. There's alcoholism, there's sexual addiction, there's all kinds of codependency, oh my gosh, so very much. As well as, prescription drug abuse and many, many other things. And the society itself, in my opinion, operates best when all the individual people are as codependent as possible, are shopaholics, etc., and so on. So when I was born, I may not have been on fire, but oh my gosh, I was caught on fire very, very quickly. And I lived most of my life on fire. This program is based on the program of AA. And, there's all sorts of ways to talk about how it happened. But at some point, somebody figured out that they could put themselves out and started sharing that with other people until there was a group of people who were not on fire. And that is absolutely fantastic. One thing led to another. And now there are all sorts of programs in all sorts of areas, one of which is codependency. For years, I have thought of program as tapping into a spring with a bucket and filling up the bucket, and by putting myself out, I'm still surrounded by flames, and I get to start pouring water around me to start creating an area that is not on fire. And sponsorship can create what's called a fire line, where I fill my bucket and I hand that to the next person, who then hands it to the next person, who then hands that to the next person. And for years, I thought about it as being in a line. And when I was new to program, I said to myself, all right, I'm right here at the end of the line, and I need to be throwing this water on myself on others, on the space immediately around me. And as the years have gone by, I've suddenly realized, my God, 5 minutes already. Okay. I've suddenly realized that I'm more toward the middle of the chain now. And that's fantastic. And to go to sponsorship, now that I have multiple sponsees, I'm actually transporting the bucket to different spots in the line, which is a very interesting concept. And I didn't know how to make that work. But then suddenly I realized there's another metaphor. And it's hiking. I don't know how many people hike in actual forests and stuff, but it's absolutely fantastic because there's like a trail, but sometimes the trail goes off in multiple directions and decisions have to be made. And now that I'm not on fire and not actively spreading fire into the forest of my life, I get to make decisions on which path I want to take. And I used to think of the steps as, okay, I put one step in front of the other. This is a very simple metaphor. That's why they're called the steps, blah, blah, blah. But that there was one final destination to get to. And when I got there, I would finally be cured. And then lights would emanate from my eyes. And I'd have to wear sunglasses and all this stuff. And that's not how it works. What actually happens is I look around at what I can see and I set a destination and I move in that direction. And sometimes I get to the point that I wanted to get at. For example, I wanted to be better at making reach out calls. And so I set my sights on, okay, I'm going to make 3 reach out calls a day. And at the beginning, I was able to make one reach out call. All right, let's focus on not beating myself up for that. 1 is better than 0. Fantastic. The next day, I did 1 yesterday. Maybe there's some Nintendo or something. No. I will try to make 3. Oh, I got to 2. It's great, etc. And eventually I got myself to the point where reach out calls were, I can't say not, but certainly far less intimidating. And then I found out that, there's this new thing that I want to focus on. And, maybe it's a bigger challenge. Like if I wanted to get to the top of a mountain, I can get to the top of the mountain, but then looking out from that mountain, I can see, oh, there's an interesting valley, or, ooh, a taller mountain, or whatever. And so now I get to set a new direction. And so ultimately, what this program is doing is getting me out of my isolation. And as a result of journeying the forests and mountains of my inner self, I get to find out that there are areas of myself I didn't even know were there and could not have seen unless I had done the work I've already done. For example, in conversations, in meetings, people started using pronouns that were not in the binary with which I was raised. And I said to myself, that's very interesting because I happen to know that at least one of my inner committee members is female. Now, how can that be if I am male? Maybe I should explore this. And I did. And I did a lot of interesting thinking and exploring about what is my gender identity? How is my conforming to rigid expectations of gender hurting me? How would I like to undo those? What does that mean for me? Etc. and so on. I got to explore my sexuality and discover all sorts of interesting things about myself. I got to do a lot of exploration into what does it mean if I have no memory of childhood sexual trauma, but exhibit 80 to 90% of the symptoms of a person who experienced childhood sexual trauma? Do I ignore it because I have no memories? Or do I do the work that is suggested to people with childhood sexual trauma? And if the memories surface, they surface, and if they don't, they don't, and grow. I chose the latter path, and it made huge differences in my life. And so now I realize that sponsorship can be more complicated than just one person helping one person. There is a concept which I originally heard from the 3 Steps in 30 Days tool back in the olden days. I think they've called it something else now, 30 questions or something. And the concept is called the power of 5. And that concept is, I have one sponsor, but I have at least 5 people who know me about as well as my sponsor. And the benefit to that is, A, my sponsor can't be there for me 100% of the time, but hopefully a group of about 5 people, at least one of them, can be available. But additionally, each person in this program has explored different parts of their inner forest, their inner terrain. And so, as I anxiously look again at the swimming pool of dating, I get to look around at, okay, who is having success with their dating in a way that I would like to grow in? What are the ways I'd like to grow? Okay, and now I can make reach out calls and ask people about, what do you think of these concepts? And people who have a lot to say to me, I can call them more often as I need more information about this thing. Okay, I just had a memory of a very violent spanking that I was issued when I was a kid. I didn't have that memory before. I need to go back to looking at my physical abuse issues. Who has shared about these physical abuse issues? I'm going to call that person and get their experience, strength, and hope more often as I deal with this thing. And so, in this way, I grow a recovery web and realize that it's not a bucket line, it's a bucket web. And because of that, we can, A, cover more area, B, some of us can discover new areas and have ideas about how to recover in those areas, which can then be shared to the rest of us as we realize, hey, those are areas for introspection. Gosh, there was a C. What was C? Higher power doesn't want me to remember C right now. Anyway. Oh, right. More areas that aren't on fire. It's fantastic. It's so much easier for me to walk into a meeting and hear somebody else has already dealt with this than it is for me to go into a whole new area on fire, choking me with smoke, on purpose, and try to figure out how to apply these steps and principles to this problem that no one else seems to have any experience, strength, and hope on. But it's actually okay, because the fire line kind of works in both directions. And here's the really, really interesting thing. Here's the thing that I realized a couple of days ago. What is the water? When I came to this program, it took me a little while to share anything of any depth. When I started sharing about my inner child, my 3-minute shares were usually a sentence or 3 about the topic. I'm going to start talking about the inner child, And the rest of my share was incoherent because I was sobbing, but also trying to stop myself from sobbing. And someone walked up to me after the meeting and said, "Can I give you feedback?" I was like, "Did you understand anything? What could you possibly give me feedback on?" I didn't say that, but I thought it. And I said yes instead, because contrary action. And that person said, I've heard it said that tears in shares are the meltwater of the ice around our hearts. And I said, my goodness, that is beautiful. What's in the bucket? It's our tears. We're putting out the fire using our tears. And it's also the sweat of those who have done the work before us. Those of us who have gone into those new areas figured out that this is an area to which I can apply the steps and traditions, and it's worth doing. For myself, for my higher power, yes, but also to clear out a little more area so that when these other people come, they won't feel so alone. They will feel like there's somebody else who's been there before. Just like I did when I first came into this program. See? Tears. Whew. This program is a miracle. This program works miracles for me every day I focus on it. And that's a really important thing for me to say, because there are days where I do not focus on this program. And I can coast on the momentum of the days before very easily. But coasting works best in a downhill direction. And I have found that the longer I coast in this program, the larger my problems become and the more recognizable they become. If, however, I give a little kick to the skateboard of my recovery, I can go uphill. I can explore new areas to myself with the help of this program and the people in it, with the help of my higher power. And I can also go to new areas and blaze new trails. And we're living in a beautiful time. I shared last week in the meeting after the meeting about my upset at society. And I went back and I reread some sections from a book talking about the addictive tendencies of society and realizing, I could just feel bad or I can start blazing new trails.